Good morning. My name is Matthew Cooper, 2 T's, 2 O's. I live here in Helena, and Convention of States is dear to my heart, and I support SJ2. First of all, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to submit for the record truthful information on the pathways for proposing amendments. This testimony is to counter the substantial misinformation fed to this body over the years on the topic of Article 5. There are 2 amendment pathways. It's already been read by other people. I won't read them again from the text from Article 5. Pathway 1, though, the congressional pathway, is the least restrictive. It is not limited to any topics or any time restraints, and any proposed amendment only requires 2/3 support in both houses of Congress to be sent to the states for approval. In contrast, however, Pathway 2, the Convention of States pathway, is much more rigorous. It requires legislative passage of identical resolutions in 2/3 of the states. That means that 34 states must call for a convention and agree on all the topics. Only when 34 states have passed the same legislation can the call occur. The Convention of States for proposing amendments will be limited to the scope of the call as specified in the legislation passed by each of the 34 states. So far, 19 states have already passed the legislation, and they are strictly limited to imposing fiscal restraints on the federal government, limiting the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and imposing term limits on Congress and federal officials. We ask that Montana become number 20. Our opposition, led by the John Birch Society, intentionally conflates the definitions of the conventions by falsely calling it a con or a constitutional convention. This is a blatant falsehood, as this Convention of States can only propose amendments to the existing Constitution, not rewrite it. Our framers provided us 2 ways to amend the Constitution because they knew they needed there to be a safeguard against a tyrannical federal Congress. Our opponents make a silly argument. They say that somehow 34 states would pass legislation for a convention whose purpose is to propose amendments to limit federal power, but then 38 states would pivot to a rewrite of the Constitution. Mr. Chairman, I can assure you that states like Florida, Texas, and others that have passed this call to limit federal power did not sign up to rewrite the Constitution. They're using this tool as intended by our framers. Thankfully, the second half of Article 5 requires 3/4 of the states to ratify any proposed amendments. That's 38 states. Our opponents are crazy if they think 38 states want to rewrite the Constitution. We, however, aren't, because we think 38 states will want to put the federal government back in its place by ratifying amendments to limit their power. With 38 states to ratify means it only takes 13 states to veto any bad amendments. That math alone prevents any runaway scenarios. In conclusion, if anyone believes in the false narrative that SJ2's use of Pathway 2 will cause a runaway convention, they are wrong, and they are misleading this honorable body on the legislation that is before it. Please use your power to save our country. Thank you very much for this opportunity to testify.